Content warning. This video deals with repressed memories of abuse. Voyager is in orbit around a planet, playing target practice. We poop out a turquoise ball, kabooming an innocent hexagon. A guy with forehead vertebrae hopes this demonstration of his wares, an isokinetic cannon, is sufficient, and a speaking role this early probably means they're important, so let's drag out the wheel. Arms dealer's new name is... Queef-symbol-nose by Lieutenant Bradford. While we're stopped, I'd like to compliment Lieutenant Bradford for finding a loophole in the rules about name submissions by including emoji, though for reasons of accessibility I'll not be including those in the closed captions or audio. For future reference, I'll be vetoing any names that aren't readable if the emoji are removed. That's not a problem here, but I know at least one of you buggers just had the idea to submit a name that's nothing but emoji, so let's nip that in the bud before it happens. Back to the episode. Queefnose is willing to trade with us, for the right price. He wants the sensors from our astrometrics department, but Janeway says they're bespoke to our ship alone, and thus useless to him. Janeway's rather taken by the shiny new gun though, and doesn't want to let it go. Instead, she offers some isolinear chips in exchange, and Queefnose agrees. He's even going to install the gun for us. I'd have thought the fact that we just fired it means it's already installed, but maybe he needs to tighten the screws or something. Curiously, we're assigning Seven to help install it. Given that the last episode involved her being put on the naughty step for sacrificing a member of the number species, this is an odd choice. When queried by Chakotay, Janeway says that she's been behaving herself recently. Now, being the pedant that I am, naturally I wanted to know what counts as recently and went to check the episode stardates. According to them, it's been about a week since Seven did a bit of the old manslaughter. Whilst I'm glad Janeway isn't holding a grudge, I'm not convinced this is sending the correct message to Seven about the sanctity of life, especially when she's being released to install a new gun. Regardless, Chakotay goes to see Seven in astrometrics to give her the news, and we also get a reminder about the Starfleet message from a couple of episodes back that we're still decrypting. It'll have to wait though as Seven goes to engineering, but not until she's registered a complaint about finding Queefnose inefficient. When she gets there, he's a bit of a dick to her. Insulting her work, he pushes her out of the way, a decision that results in the second broken nose in engineering caused by mansplaining. Maybe she's taking lessons from B'Elanna. The dog's treating Queefnose's broken nose. He's outraged at what he calls an unprovoked attack. Thankfully, B'Elanna was quite close at the time and provides the context that he was raising his voice and using physical force. Queefnose downplays it naturally, referring to the shove as a gentle gesture. I wonder if he'd consider the broken nose more favourably if we called it a minor realignment. Janeway apologises because diplomacy, though I'd have at least reviewed the security footage myself first, and leaves to have a word with Seven. It takes the form of addressing down the disappointed headmistress tired of being forced to discipline their hellion ward once more. To be fair, it ultimately ends with Janeway trying to reason with her, which is better than I expected. The importance of restraining impulses is impressed upon her, even with somebody that has such a punchable face as Queefnose, and Seven agrees to think on the topic more, which seems to satisfy Janeway. In the sick bay, the doc is giving Seven a quick check. He can't resist inquiring about the fisticuffs in engineering, though does at least show concern for her health. That concern may be well-founded, though not for physical reasons. Seven flinches from the medical tricorder and the doc asks if she's feeling tense, presumably thinking it's due to the earlier altercation. A scan in a biobed makes things worse, seeming to trigger a flash in her mind of something similar and causing more distress. The doc's use of a flashy pen produces another image and she panics, demanding to be released. Once out, she backs away before managing to regain a tenuous grasp of control. The obvious conclusion is trauma from her time with the Borg, but that stuff didn't look Borg to me. Seven's having a little nap after allowing the dog to give her some sleepy time juice. He tells Janeway that she essentially had a panic attack and the reason might be suppressed memories. There's some science in her brain blocking memory centers, but it's slowly fading. He also says he didn't notice it there before, suggesting the suppression is recent. As the only new person this week is Queefnose, I think his involvement is a fair assumption. We'll find out soon enough as the doc, happy to show off the new psychotherapist subroutines he's written, offers to help her integrate the memories. Here's hoping it goes better than the last time he fiddled with his program and sexually harassed B'Elanna. To the cargo bay, because Seven still lives in there along with all the other useful items. The doc sticks a flashy thing on her head and tries to walk her through the images in her mind. A tricorder, sick bay. The doc scanning. She describes feeling fear. The biobed, a sense of being constrained. An image of Queefnose grabbing her in the same feeling of restraint. Him using some kind of tool on her. She wakes and says she now remembers Queefnose performing surgery on her, removing Borg tech. The memories are hazy, but she knows she wasn't on Voyager and assumes it was when they were testing weapons on the planet. The doc asks her to focus, and we go to watch for ourselves through the power of memories. Paris is blowing up rocks for the lols. Seven's there to assess and states the gun's accuracy could be improved with some minor modifications. Queefnose invites her to his facility to observe him working on it, as Paris remains at the range to blow more shit up. We arrive at a workshop and begin fiddling. After a little effort, Queefnose offers a demonstration. Unfortunately, his test subject is Seven, and he poops a white ball at her. Her next memory is of being reclined while Queefnose and another spinal forehead start poking her. They remove and test some implants whilst also taking a batch of her Borg minibots. Injecting these into a test subject has entirely predictable results, which seems to please them. A flash and Seven is back in the workshop. Queefnose apologizes and says that he burned her hand by accidentally pooping the gun he was working on, apparently after covering her memories of the intervening events. The doc takes all of this in before saying that he'll go and let Janeway know what happened. In the briefing room, Janeway, Tuvok and Paris listen to the doc telling them that he has no doubt Seven was assaulted. Paris says that she was gone for 2 hours, so it's a possibility, but that she mentioned nothing on her return. The doc chalks this up to memory shenanigans, so Janeway changes the focus to what we can prove. And there's where we start to find some problems. You see, there are no physical indicators of the event having taken place. The Doctor argues this could be because Queefnose used some of Seven's own minibots to repair the damage, but that does nothing to help our case. It's Tuvok who's willing to mention the elephant, that the doc is considering Seven's memory to be factually accurate despite a lack of any corroborating evidence. He also states that recovered memories can be dubious at best. The doc counters this with there being a difference between old and fresh memories when recovering them. He also states that his scans are proof of their existence, a matter of science, not belief. Janeway pulls us back to the point. If this happened, it's serious, as Borg minibots are proper dangerous. The doc is to continue his examinations to try and prove wrongdoing, while Janeway goes to chat with Queefnose. Unsurprisingly, he doesn't immediately throw up his hands, proclaim his guilt, and walk himself to our brig. Instead, he claims Seven is lying and starts having a bit of a shout. Janeway tells him she's simply investigating a serious claim, not making accusations. The questioning is inconclusive, with Queefnose's story matching the bits of Seven's that don't involve him performing invasive medical procedures. After warning him of the dangers of Borg technology if it's misused, she says she wants to examine his lab. You know, just to make sure and not because you're a dodgy bastard. He says no, obviously, until Janeway threatens involving the authorities. He seems pissed off about it, but agrees. Our resident detective takes over to establish the facts. He doesn't learn anything new about the event, but raises a potential moral quandary. See, Queefnose says his species relies on trade with other races. His authorities view anything that can get in the way of that trade very seriously. Being accused of wrongdoing, even if he's found entirely innocent, could be the end of his business. That won't stop Tuvok from doing the job, of course, but he tries to reassure Queefnose that the investigation will be impartial. That'll have to be enough. Down in sickbay, the doc is talking to Seven some more. It's taking the form of a therapy session, and he wants her to experience her emotions about what happened. In fact, he's very insistent on it. Some would say persuasive. He tells her that the event was an affront and that she should be angry about it. He talks her through exactly why Queefnose is a complete bastard, not stopping until she's entirely pissed off about the whole thing. I'm pretty confident I can see where we're going with this. To the workshop, where Queefnose is showing Tuvok, the doc, and a magistrate around. The doc keeps finding things that he believes support Seven's claims, though they're also consistent with Queefnose's version of events, where it was just an accidental pooping. All but one, anyway, as there are Borg minibots on a surface. That in itself is consistent with the claims of an accident, except for the fact that they're active. The doc thinks they'd be dormant if they'd been there for a while. Gee, I wonder if getting hit with a large energy discharge could affect their default behaviour. The magistrate feels this is enough for an official investigation, but Queefnose has had his fill. After saying the whole thing is a stitch-up and blaming Tuvok for not letting the search be impartial, he grabs a random gun before teleporting away. Tuvok calls Voyager and asks them to track him. He's aboard a ship that's currently trying to scarper. We teleport everybody aboard, including the magistrate who asks to join us, and go after him. His ship is super slow, though whether that's a choice or a limitation, we're not sure. Some white poop disables our sensors and he disappears from the view screen. I guess we're going to have to track him down. Looks like the slow speed was a choice, as Voyager is eventually able to detect Queefnose's warp wibblies. We're following now and using the time to examine the equipment from his workshop, an examination that's not quite going to plan. Nothing they find proves Seven's story in any way. The only thing that might is the Borg minibots not being dormant, but Tuvok says we don't know enough about them to be sure. In fact, he suggests we repeat the overload that Queefnose said happened to see what effect it will have on Seven and her minibots. Called it. We all gather in sickbay and, after the doc registers concern about subjecting Seven to more trauma, we begin. Good news though, we won't have to repeat kabooming something on her arm. We can simulate the effects with a spray, then see how the minibots react, so we do that. Oh dear. Turns out Queefnose might be innocent after all. Who could have guessed? Based on the fact that the minibots are active, the doc has to conclude that there's no evidence for Seven's version of events. He also now says that her brain is still somewhat of a mystery to him due to the Borginess, and maybe he just done fucked up. All of which is unacceptable to Seven. She was promised closure when Queefnose paid for his crimes. Now she has all of this useless emotion stuff and nowhere to put it. Unacceptable. He must be guilty and he must be punished. We've caught up with Queefnose. After a few attempts to call him, he picks up. As an aside, something felt familiar here, and it took me a few seconds to realise what it is. The cockpit. Queefnose is in Braxton's time ship from the Future's End episodes. If Janeway notices, she doesn't mention it, instead trying to reason with him. We tell him that we were wrong, that the evidence supports his claim, but of course he thinks this is just a trick to stop him, and hangs up with a threat to fire on us if we continue pursuit. It's not a bluff, either. After seeing we won't leave him alone, he turns and poops some white at us. The magistrate is telling us to defend ourselves, but Janeway refuses to fire. We've done enough damage as it is, and she won't be responsible for more. The universe decides that won't be necessary. As Queefnose supercharges his guns, they overload and pop his ship. It's probably just as well that we didn't buy any from him after all. We turn around and head back to the planet as the doc wrestles with his fuck-up and Seven tries to figure out how she should feel. The matter has been settled with the magistrates, and we've finally been allowed to leave after lengthy interviews for the doctor. Seven arrives for her weekly check, and a subdued doctor goes through the motions before saying she's fine and dismisses her. She doesn't feel fine though, and neither does he. The guilt over a single death confuses her. She was part of the deaths of millions and wasn't bothered. Why is this any different? The doctor explains that this is remorse for an error and she'll have to work through it, just like him. Though perhaps he doesn't. He sees Janeway and asks her to delete the parts of his program that make him want to be more than he was originally designed to be. If he doesn't push his boundaries, he won't feel bad when he bollockses things up. Janeway says everybody was a part of what happened, that they all wanted to support Seven, and that they'll all have to live with the consequences of being responsible for an innocent death, though I imagine that's easier for her as she already has experience in that area. His request denied, the doc leaves to deal with his guilt as we fly away. If, like me, you were around in the 80s and 90s, you've probably heard the term repressed memories. There's a fair chance you tie it with the words scandal or satanic panic, too. We won't go into it in too much detail here, but in short, some utter quacks coerced kids into creating fake memories about abuse that didn't happen, and the world lost its collective shit. That the panic was prompted by a book written by Lawrence Pasda, a psychiatrist so committed to professional ethics that he was fucking the patient he wrote the book with, was ignored. The book is now utterly discredited and the prick's dead. May he rest in piss. The damage caused by the panic was twofold. Not only did many thousands of kids and adults have their lives ruined in a public furore fabricated by scumbags and shysters, but the backlash also left legitimate abuse survivors, some with genuinely repressed memories, struggling to be believed. I think it's fair then to refer to this episode of Voyager as a bit on the nose. That said, it's solidly written and acted for the most part, and I've never felt Trek should avoid contemporary issues, so it would be wrong to hold that against it. There are a few bits I take issue with, such as the Doc's insistence that he can scientifically prove it's a memory early on, only to backtrack on that later. I'm assuming that's a nod to the pseudo-scientific wankery of the panic it references, but it doesn't really gel with his data-driven nature. The speeches at the end are perhaps a touch overdone too, but we've heard far, far worse, so that's forgivable, and I'd rather have clarity on the morals than leave it open to interpretation by any viewers with exceptionally elastic minds. If there's one thing I've learned from making these videos, it's that the Trek fandom has a particularly vocal minority of those. End of episode.
Hello, it's Space Dog again. So, they're going through with the teleporter thing in a minute to see if they can get me out of the computer. I think the last straw might have been me deleting all of their personal logs and replacing them with videos of horses taking a shit. I meant it as a joke, uptight pricks. Which means the next time you see me I might be in my old body again. Or maybe I'll be a lizard or something. No, that's too far-fetched. Nobody with any self-respect would suggest that as a plot. Well, here goes. Wish me luck. Whoa.